Welcome to Healing Generations, a podcast creating a dialogue uplifting the importance of healing, strengthening, and supporting our communities, and that addresses the disparities and inequities in communities of color. Healing Generations is brought to you by the Healing Generations Institute, a collaborative initiative of the National Compadres Network and the Brotherhood of Elders. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on our new releases.
Buenas, this is Francisco Gallardo with the Healing Generations podcast, Yelder edition. What's up, gente? I wanted to, I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in every week. You know, no matter what episode that's your favorite, be it the youth, the maestras, Maestro Jerry, or the Yelders edition with me. But I'm glad you're tuning in, and definitely please subscribe or wherever, follow. Each of the podcasting apps has their own kind of way that you can follow. And the good thing about subscribing is that every week you're going to get that episode downloaded to your device, your phone, computer, however you listen. But I want to remind you, please leave a review so that people can find us, Write something good, write something, that's inspirational, if it inspires you anyway. But that's what I really want to share with you. But today, I think we got a really good episode. But before I get to that, we always have to do the 4 directions. It's important that we ask for permission from our ancestors, and that we recognize our place in the world. A lot of times people think, the world revolves around us, but it really doesn't. We're just a part of the world, just like every animal, every insect, every person. We're just a part of it. And we have to be grateful that we're a part of it, that we get to enjoy this life. Even though there's a lot of hard times for people, there's still a lot of beauty in the world. And I don't want you to forget that. And being in gratitude, having that mindfulness about our place is important, because then you appreciate things better. A lot of people have it hard, and we're all here to back each other up in that way, encourage one another, because with that, healing is going to make a big difference in your life. So I want you all collectively, let's take a deep breath. And in your mind, if you could think about the direction of the east, the direction of all the men, our grandfathers, our fathers, our sons, our brothers, our tios, our hood tios, even our homies, our friends, our compadres. I want you to remember all the things that they've been through in their life and the struggles that they have, and all the beauty that they bring too, just the way they are, the way they laugh, the way they talk, all those things, we want to remember them as we're speaking today. And then I want you to turn around to the left, facing that west direction. As we go there, we're thinking about all our relatives, the LGBTQ relatives, and what they go through, what they're about, no matter who it is, your partner, your parents, your brothers, your sisters, whoever. Just some person you just met, show them respect, show them a good side of who you are, because a lot of them, they feel sad in their everyday life too, A lot of them share a lot of beauty despite what they go through. And we want to lift that up as well. And as we face the West, we want to think about all the women in our lives, our grandmothers, our moms, our daughters, our tias, our hood tias. Could be our partner, could be our granddaughters, our little nieces, the girls in our program. We want to think about them, all the hardships that they have, the struggles that young women carry, that women carry, that our mothers carried on our behalf. We want to think about all the women in that way. And we want to bring their blessing into this space with us. We want to recognize them for that. Recognize all the struggles that they have, but all the blessings and beauty that they bring, just the way they carry themselves, They make organizations so much better. They make families so much better, with just how they are. If it's just one gender, it's never the same. The balance is beautiful in that way. So as we turn again to the left, we're going to face that north direction, and we're going to think of our ancestors, all those that came before us, how they struggled, how they found a way to survive. They achieved balance in many ways. We want to think about those ancestors. And in turn, our elders, our elders in our communities. This time of year, it's cold in some places and they don't have, they have to decide, what do? They heat the house, do they eat? They have to make tough decisions sometimes for medicine and things like that. We want to remember them. We want to remember the struggle. And I also want to remind you, say hi, talk to them. All they want to do is share a story to somebody new. Think about that next time you see an elder in your community. And if you have your grandparents or your parents, please make time for them. Talk to them. We all need to do better at that. And then as we turn again to the left, there's that spectrum of all the ages, from the oldest all the way down to the youngest. As we face the south, we think of all the children in the world, all the children, even that are not even born yet, that we want to make a better life for them. So we want to think of those children in that way. We want to think about their hopes and dreams and what the possibilities could be. We don't know who that baby's going to become and what they're going to do with their lives. And we want to think about them when they're, even before they were born, they're newborns, toddlers, all the way, little elementary school. They go out to middle school, high school, and beyond. We want to think about them and bless them up each part of their lives. And we want to remember decisions we make affect them, even if we're not even thinking about them. One of my elders always used to tell me, we're living in our children's past. And that's a big responsibility to have, because when they look back, did we do everything we could have? Did we try all the things we needed to try? I want you to think about that. And then I want you to think, put your hands up to the sky, to that sun, and just the sun, what it represents, that warmth, that love, the light. Sometimes when it's a bright sunny day, it just feels good. We just have to remember, even when we can't see the sun, it's still there. We have to be that way. We have to think like that. And then we touch the earth. Think about Don Unseen, Mother Earth. We want to think about all the beautiful things that we share. The water, not only from the air, but from the ground, from the oceans, all the water, the plants, the trees, all the parts that are possible that we're a part of. We want to think about that. And then, of course, in the center, we want to think about the Creator. And whatever you call God, or even if you don't believe anything, I want you to think of just the miracle of life again. Just what a miracle it is to be alive, And no matter what our situation is, we have that ability to thrive, to survive, to build on our resilience. That's what we want. That's what we want for our communities. And that's what we want for each and every person out there. So I want you to take a deep breath in again. I want to say a hello to each and every one of you that way again. Thank you for taking that time out. I really appreciate that. So today we have a special guest. His name is Joseph Escamilla. I'm going to let him introduce himself, but I just want to say a little bit about him. He's one of those guys that's he has a dream, has a vision out there, and he's putting it to work. And of course, I support things like that. And I know this is the kind of stories that you want to hear, and that could be inspirational, because there's a lot of people out there who say they're going to do things, but never do, They talk about it like, man, if we just had everyone to be together. There's this story that this lady, she won a Nobel Peace Prize in Africa, in West Africa, I believe. I should know her name by now, but I always forget it when I'm put on the spot. But the words still are important to me. She's attributed to a story that she tells over there. And I also heard that story is also really originate as a native story. But she talks about this hummingbird, in the forest. There's all the animals and everybody's there. And there was this giant fire. And all the animals are, they're just running away, for their lives. And all of a sudden they saw this hummingbird come over And the hummingbird dipped his little beak inside the lake, and he went over to the fire, that's raging in the forest, and he dropped just a little bit of water. They just got little beaks. And all the animals started laughing. And they're like asking this hummingbird, what are you doing? Like, well, you think your little drop of water is going to help? And what that hummingbird looked back and said, hey, I'm just doing my part. This is what I have to offer. And in the native story, the hummingbird also talks about like, I, as a hummingbird, pollinate different plants so it can thrive. And in exchange, the forest provides flowers for me to pollinate. And that's how I live. So we live together. It's a balance. And that's kind of what really comes down to the work, What are you going to do? Like, because we all have to do our part, Sometimes we have more money than we have time. Sometimes we have more time than money. But there's always a way for you to support, always. So think about that. Maybe there's a good community organization wherever you live and, go volunteer for a few hours, or if you're going to take from that, like healing or whatever it is, you want to make sure you're giving a little bit too. I just want to remind all the relatives of that because it's important to make sure you're giving back in that way. So I want to welcome Joseph to the show. And I'm going to ask you, Joseph, can you share a little bit about yourself, your family, your background, and what brought you to this point in life?
Good evening. Thanks for having me. It's always a honor and privilege to get invited anywhere these days. In my previous life, I didn't get many invitations. I was the guy that when I showed up is like, oh, hide your stuff. Hide your stuff. He's here. And yeah, that's what I came from. I came from a product of my environment. Grew up in systems, juvenile hall camp, graduated to county jail, prison system. And yeah, in March 2008, I was arrested for that would be my last time. And when I was in there almost 60 days waiting. I was in drug court. I'm a recovering addict. And yeah, I was in there and I was just like, man, like maybe if I stop using, maybe I'll stay out of here, and that was my main motivator at first to get off drugs, like just wanted to stay out of jail, and then almost 16 years later now, like, my journey's taken me many different directions. And, before some of my, maybe at those times, maybe I felt like, oh man, I wasted time here, or this job was a waste of my time. Like, like I've had those thoughts, throughout my journey, but today I look at those that have all helped me develop into what I bring to the community today, and developing, and creating community. And it wasn't always that way. Like, I forgot the way you worded something, but I was once that person, and just thought about me and just worried about, what I had and worried about what shoes I was wearing and, what car I was driving and, the things, where sometimes some of us that get off of drugs, we start to embrace things, we trade one addiction for another, and until like, I was hit a point in my life. I was like 7 years clean and I lost everything. I was in a men's home. I gave up my family, and that's when I like really had a moment of like my aha moment, where I really just kind of looked at like I had life backwards, I was worried about being accepted in society. I was worried about, impressing people with things I had, and that experience of like losing everything without drugs, that hit me more than all the shit I did in my addiction, Like in my addiction, I really didn't lose much. I was in and out of jail. I really didn't have anything of value. I didn't have no children. I didn't have a partner, so I didn't really lose much, but being faced with like looking at like, here you are 7 years clean in a men's home because of your decisions, and poor choices, and no more car, no more this, no, like, it really humbled me, and pushed me more. And, I'm really big on inside work, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not a race, it's a journey, and we go through phases sometimes, and for some of us, pain's a motivator, and sadly, pain, like I gotta be in some pain for me to like be interested in changing something or in addressing something, like dental work. Like
Yeah.
I'll sit there and wait till I'm in some pain before I'll go get checked up or go address it.
So, I mean, it's interesting what you said because it was a lot of different things that came on, in your life. But was there that series of things, or where there was that one aha moment, like, I can't do this anymore, I need to change? I mean, because I know we talked about this a little bit in our conversations about, you kind of think like at one point when you're having fun or you're just, getting high or whatever, you have this feeling of like, oh, it's, like I'm just living the life kind of. Even if it's not the best life, you're just living life, chasing that feeling. But was there a time, I mean, even when you got arrested the first time, it kind of freaked you out, or not even the first time, but like the times where it just kind of started happening. But that last time you kind of hit a brick wall, was that your bottom that kind of woke you up, or was it just a combination of things?
A combination. It was a combination, and I was that person that said I would never stick a needle in my arm. And if you were doing that, like, that was low. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like it's crazy. Like in the drug using world, like it's like crack kids are prejudiced against the tecatos, and
Yeah, yeah,
and the alcoholics think they're better than them because they're not using drugs; they're just drinkers, and it's crazy how like the meth addicts,
yeah,
sit there and look down on the people that want to like do downers, and
yeah.
it's hilarious, right? But that was just the lowest of the low. And like my last year and a half, 2 years using, I started using IV drugs. And like my experience, like, cause like I went to rehab, and like once you get introduced to a new way of life and you know that there's something else, that there's another way, and you go back to that, you don't get loaded the same. It messes with you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because like in your conscience, it's like, there's another way, but that addiction is like just one more.
Mm-hmm.
And my just one more turned into slamming and losing everything, being homeless. Just, I went from gangster to wankster at the end, like
Yeah.
getting arrested. I remember like, my feet looking all cracked up, and 'cause my shoes were always on, and just that whole experience, just like, man, I don't want to go through this shit anymore. Like, I was 26 years old, and just all that stuff kind of, like, I remember getting my first STD check, when I got out of jail. I was like, I remember those 72 hours of waiting, and I was like scared. I was like, man, I've been slamming with people. Like, I thought about the people I used with and how they looked and where they were living, and
Mm-hmm.
there's that whole experience. And I was like, man, I don't want to go through this anymore. And
Yeah, you could have had Hep C.
I did. I
Man.
did. I
Oh
did.
yeah.
Yeah, I caught Hep C, but I was able to fight it off, and
Mm.
got some medical attention, but I was worried about like other stuff too, like
Yeah.
the stuff that,
HIV.
yeah. But that was my bottom, like I had hit bottoms before, but that bottom was just a different one where it's just like, yeah, something's got to change.
So what was that very first step you took in recovery? What's that very first step? Because a lot of people say you don't know that first one so hard. What was that first step?
Admitting that I had a problem, admitting that I can't just use one time, or I just can't have, like, my drug of choice is drugs,
Mm-hmm.
but it always started with alcohol. It isn't my drug of choice, but it's the easy access one. And
It's the on ramp.
yeah, every time I got out of jail or I'd be like, I'm just going to drink, and I drink a day or two or three. And then eventually it's like, let's go get some dope.
Mm.
And it just never failed, and once I surrendered and just kind of admitted, like, some people could stop cold turkey and never look back. I mean, there's times where I've thought about, like, oh, maybe I could have a drink or two, or weed. Like, I still like the smell of weed.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like, I live on the west side, so, like, the 10 freeway towards downtown, every time there's all these dispensaries downtown, like, between the 110 and the 5 and the 60, like, there's a bunch of dispensaries, and you just smell it. But, it's like, man, like, my life has been good without any of it. I don't need any of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've also built myself a career, and I've created this person that people rely on in sobriety. And yeah, so I just kind of stick to, if it's not broke, why fix it? It's been working almost 16 years, so no point of going back.
And that initial road, did you do it through like NA, like out treatment? Did you ever have to do, treatment in a facility? Like, what was your method to kind of start to even take those first steps,
So I'm a product of Prop 36. Prop 36 was a drug court thing back in, I think it was like 05, 06, 07, 08. And I got enrolled, and then upon successful completion of a drug program, and you turn in your completion, that charge isn't charged on you. It was diversion, kind of.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got sent to a program. I had to do 6 months in, and then I want to say it was 4 months outpatient. So I had to do 6 months inpatient, 4 months or so outpatient. And yeah, when I got to that program, I've been at 2 treatment centers prior, and the seed was planted, and I had some information. And upon going to that third program, I just like little by little started applying some of the stuff I remembered, and really sticking to my boundaries. And, because like there was opportunities in there. And, I still remember these dudes. It was like 4 of us. Like we were cool, we clicked up really good in there. And but then one of them started drinking. Then he brought the other ones down, and they would invite me, but after so many times, like, nah, I'm good. Like that's when I don't think you're ever done. Some people, like, there is no cure. There is no game over. Like, but that's like when I knew it was like, I need to stick to this, because I wanted to get faded with them. They were drinking cheap vodka and smoking, like, it was just, but I stuck to it, and the program I was at, I hated it. It was in Watts, the neighborhood wasn't the best of neighborhoods. They didn't have no vans. I was in a different area. Like,
Yeah.
I had to walk to the train, like a lot of gangbanging going on, like my safety, I would power walk to the train station. Like, like I was right in the middle of Watts, you got the projects right there. You got, yeah. And I just kept all that stuff close by, and when I got out, just kind of remembering, like, when I would get a bright idea, I'm like, yeah, there's a program waiting for me, or there's a prison cell waiting for me somewhere. Or, so whenever I would start getting negative thinking, it's like, man, dude, you could go share a bathroom with a bunch of fools again, or, like just the little things, because living in those places, you got to deal with people's smells, people's hygienes, people's, are they clean? Are they not clean? Are they, some people are dirty. Then I got plugged into, Narcotics Anonymous, got really involved in that community. And I'm still involved, just not as much. But my first year or second year, I got introduced to ceremony. Yeah, and I've, just been kind of hanging on to both.
So let me ask you this question. A lot of people, because, even though in that world they talk about recovery, right? But it's really about healing. That addiction caused so much trauma in your life, things you witnessed, things you did, chasing that high, that feeling. But what are some of the misconceptions about healing, and how could we frame them so people can understand the healing process so we could better support people? Because I think a lot of people have all these kind of wild ideas about healing. Like, if I just do this, if I could get there, then I could finally heal, or I could finally work on myself. When you hear that statement, what does it mean to you when people say, I want to heal, but
A lot of us are raised, with what happens in the house stays in the house. You don't tell anybody what happened.
Mm-hmm.
You don't talk about what goes on here. And, you bury that stuff so deep, like you don't even know what you need to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes it gets buried so deep, or maybe, it even gets normalized, because it's such a constant event or situation that happened over, so it's normalized, so it's sometimes people need healing, but they don't even know they need healing because it's just normal to watch my mom get her ass beat, it's just normal for my dad to be an asshole, it's just that's just the norm, and that's where I feel like it's our responsibility, and kind of some of what we were talking about yesterday, right? Like, our community isn't ready for healing. It's a process, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of like putting your beliefs, putting you to the side, and thinking about the next person. There's a lot of moving pieces that come to healing, and because I've known people in recovery that haven't dealt with some of the things that they need to deal with, and I know quite a few people, 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years clean and sober, crazy as hell.
That is true, man. Yep.
I mean, this probably sounds judgmental, but I mean, if you got like 20 plus years, especially if you're in some type of community, there's a lot of different types. If you're in some type of process, it's a language that we speak. There's a commonality, there's like you could tell, like, oh, all right, this guy's done some type of work. Versus like somebody that, oh yeah, I haven't used drugs in over 20 years, but they're, bitter and angry, and, they're just abstinent, they're not willing, or maybe, I mean, I don't know, everyone's different, right? But they haven't addressed the things that they need to address.
Those core issues,
and because we live in a world, in a time where like we're not allowed to feel, and even our doctors and medical people, like, we live in a world where it's like, oh, I'm sad. Oh, here's a pill. You're depressed, or I'm always hyper, and oh, maybe, you're stressed out. Like, there's, and that's the world we live in. You're really not allowed to feel, and if you do feel, like, there's a pill for that, or there's a, you're weak, or there's all this different things, so like people just kind of bury that stuff and hide it, and, because they're embarrassed, or they don't want to shame the family, or they don't want to shame their parents, or whatever it is.
I think one of those things that you really brought up for me is a lot of time when you're healing, when you're in the process of healing, like sometimes people are around you are not in that same journey, right? So they misinterpret what you're saying, but in that journey when you're healing, was there a point for you when you recognized that dealing with your addiction was one thing, but that you were actually healing parts of you? And what were some of those things that you felt were like that came out, like your love for books? Was it what was the one thing that through that journey that you found some type of comfort with and helped you in that healing journey?
It's funny you asked that. Like, as I'm getting older, I've been going through these different phases of like, what do I like doing? What hobbies do I have? Asking myself these different questions and kind of looking at, like, is this it? Like, just go to, work, school, go with the family, kind of trip here and there. Like, is this it? and so I'm saying that to say like that 7 year mark was a pivotal point of my journey, because I just, I mean, I got clean, but I was hanging out with the same type of crowd, but in recovery,
Yeah.
my conversations and stuff changed, but I still really stood close to people that I once identified with,
Mm.
and they weren't doing too much, they weren't doing too much living, and it was kind of like we were just clean, but just we're hanging out. We go to a
Mm-hmm.
meeting, then we go grub, we'll plan things here and there, and like-minded people,
Mm-hmm.
and but I've always wanted more, and I've always been willing to step out of my comfort zone.
Mm.
And I always liked having the people around me that didn't look like me and didn't talk like me, because I wanted to learn how to talk differently. I wanted to learn how to change my vocabulary, and some people get it twisted. Like, it's like, oh, you are who you are. It's like, yeah, but I don't want to be that person I created that I thought I was supposed to be. This image,
Mm.
and it feels good because like I've built myself up. Sometimes people don't like, damn, you've been to prison, like, because I mean I don't really talk about it, and then
Mm-hmm.
the way I talk, I mean, 15 years ago, like I'd be like, that was some fool guy, like,
Yeah.
what's up, fool? Like,
Yeah.
and now it's like, hey, how's it going, bro? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just, but that 7 year mark, and I share what it was, because I was in a men's home slash slow sober living. That's what it, like that was the only place I knew that had their own rooms, and it was $550, and I was like, okay, I could afford that, and I'll be in my own room. Like,
Mm.
like I was like, I can't share a room. Like, I got 7 years clean. I can't share no room with anybody, and
Yeah.
and I was going to this book study, NA meeting, and there was a reading where it talked about, I think it was on the 6th or 7th step, and it was talking about during this phase, it starts to require a new level of honesty with yourself. And the rest of that chapter we read, it really resonated with me because like I was in a point where like my behavior got me to where I was at. Like I made a choice to leave my family for another female, thinking the grass was greener somewhere else, and
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't the case. That shit was dead, But I had to write out my choice,
Mm-hmm.
And I remember those words like requiring a new level of honesty. Like it's like, okay, yeah, I admitted I had a problem. I admitted that drugs and this and that, but like I was in denial about these other areas of my life until I was able to like really face that. I'll be 16 in March, That was my point where like I need to grow the hell up. I started tapping into other things and taking a deeper look in my behaviors and going a little deeper, because like I was in a relationship, but I always like flirt, like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't address that area of my life. My first addiction was getting away with something and
Yeah.
secrets. Those were my first addictions before I even found drugs. But getting clean, that was still there.
Yeah.
That sneaky shit, little one night stand I could get away with and nobody knows, like that behavior was still there and I carried it. But yeah, around that point in my journey was when I was like, yeah, you gotta address that.
So in that part, when did you start knowing you wanted to work with people and you wanted to invest in your community? Was it through NA, through your work there? Was it like, what was that one moment where you're like, oh, like for me, I was just a part of a group, all of us trying to change our lives. And then they started listening to me and I didn't ask them to, but they did. And I realized that I had a responsibility because people are looking up to me, even if I didn't want them to, that I had some influence and people around me told me like, look it, you like it or not, you're a role model. And if you don't use that for good, you're going to, these people also can learn bad too from you. And I seen that too. Young guys following me when I was young and putting bad things in their way, But what was that time for you?
I mean, I started like right when I got clean, and I remember like at one point, like I wanted to be a drug counselor, and a lot of times folks that, go through recovery, that's kind of like, oh yeah, I want to get back and be a drug counselor. And, I started teaching groups at a program I was at.
What kind of groups was it?
I was doing like fatherhood groups, domestic violence, parenting, anger management, book club type group. And that's where, where I started connecting with people and started, you know, the place I used to work at, was real big on non-traditional approaches to working with people. It's like we live in a system where it's like we're full of like mandated reporters, and you can't talk about how you're feeling because then they put a diagnosis next to you, or, all this stuff, and the place I was working at was everything but that. It was more like I see you, I hear you, like you're not alone, and building community, planting seeds, letting people know your actions don't define you. A lot of times people hold on to what they've done, and it's like, oh man, I'm a piece of shit, and I'm a horrible parent, and then yeah, I just kind of kept worked in treatment for a little bit, and quickly I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to do this drug, because it's. I mean, I like the work, but it's very, like I say, I had kids. I have 11 and a 12-year-old. So I had my kids. And as they're getting older and I'm learning more, it's like, yeah, these drug counselors they don't make that much. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like like if I was living alone, I mean, I probably. But I got these kids, and I'm like, yeah, and there's not much room to grow in a drug program. It's like there's a drug counselor and the director. Like, it's not much.
Not much growth, right?
Yeah. So then I left there, and then I started working with young people, and yeah, then I just kind of, because people have always, over the time, I've met a lot of people in different communities, and I've always offered service, like something I picked up in my recovery is, being of service, you know.
Mm.
Yeah, so like I just kind of, people would always hit me up for like, hey, can you help my, brother find mental health, or help my uncle get in rehab, or, all these different scenarios. And then I started learning about different stuff, and I was like, oh, maybe I could get some kind of funding to help these people that are reaching out to me versus trying to help them find help. Like maybe I could help them, and yeah, if something happens when you see somebody at their lowest, and you see them like build themselves up and get their kids back, or reunite with their partner, or get a career, or buy their first car, or get a degree, or get off parole, all those good things that come with change. And like, I love that. I really like that part of helping people. Last year I took a kid jet skiing for his first time.
Wow.
Never left the city.
Wow.
Like the farthest he's been from South Central was Silmar, and that's because he was in juvenile hall. Like,
Wow.
and just to see that kid, he was like so happy. He was so like, he's like, man, I never thought I'd be on one of these things. Like, that's why I do it.
Let's go now. Fast forward to where you were trying to go right when we started. Is what is your vision, and what are you doing now? And what's your vision for what you want to build?
I want to build a community that helps heal community.
Mm.
I want to build that community that can trust each other, that, there's like so much, everyone's out for themselves, and it sucks, because what we're up against is like the cost of living. Time isn't enough. Traffic's a big issue. Like sometimes parents like, get out of work at 4 or 5, takes them an hour to drive like 10 miles. Like they got to cook dinner. They got to engage with the kids. They got to, You know, like a lot of people get so caught up in their world, like they don't have that time to invest in their community or participate, you know, because there so many various reasons, you know, but building that type of community, like, you know, where we look out for each other, where we like, hey, there's a knucklehead on the block. Let's bring the block together and have a circle and hey man,
Mm.
how can we help you, man? And I don't know, what's up, man? What if I give you a job? I got a gardening company, you know? Boom. Now he's out of
Mm-hmm.
trouble. Now he has income and doesn't have to worry about stealing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, how do we build that? How can we build that type of, yeah, go hit up homeboy around the block. He has a construction company. I'm sure he, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
where we have these community members bringing in like, you know, our knuckleheads and supporting the parents, you know, teaching the parents, like having men in your life that tell you like, hey man, you talk to your kids foul. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, having the community mentor them, having, you know, like we have generations and generations of pain and trauma and incest and you know, all this stuff. And like I had to raise myself. And I grew up with my
Mm.
mom and dad in the house.
Mm.
You know, I had to figure out life on my own.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that are doing that. You know, I always wanted that question, right? How do we create a supportive environment, healing both individually and within our community to foster the collective communal self well-being, right? How do we do that? How do we create that well-being and unity and all that? Because man, it's hard out there because, you know, even though people always talk about, man, I wish we could get together, but it's making it happen is the hard part, you know, getting the movement, you know, getting a commitment, getting it doing. And you're doing it, bro. You really are. And I see that. And, you know, you're taking baby steps, learning how to, you know, taking the opportunity to learn as much as you can. But can you share some practical tips and techniques in your own self-care? And even if, you know, even if you don't think they're good enough to share, but I've witnessed some things with you. You know, you're reading, you're trying different things. Like, what are some things that you do? And somebody who's kind of in that situation, the younger you, what practical tips would you give them to keep them together, keep them strong?
Find an interest, find an interest, dive into a community,
Mm.
you know, a community of motivated people, you know, invest in your mindset, changing your mindset. It's like, you know, so you got to think about it. If you hang around three broke people, I'm pretty sure you're going to be the fourth broke person. You know, like,
Yeah.
you know, if you go to the barber shop, you're probably going to get a haircut, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And what does that mean? I mean, like, kind of like you're a product of your environment and really, you know, surrounding yourself with people that are like, I'm in college, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't push like, oh, you know, I don't push academics. Academics have been amazing these past couple years for me. I'm, I just started Cal State LA working on my bachelor's and, building community there. I just got involved with the Project Rebound and
Mm.
some other communities on campus. And I mean, man, I almost wanted to apply for housing, like just to sleep over there once in a while to take a break from my wife, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't think she would go for that one.
Yeah,
But
yeah, no.
but you know, like really surround yourself with motivated people. You know, like learning about money, learning about investing, learning about flipping stuff, learning about whatever, you know, and really paying attention to the company you keep, you know, like if you're keeping company that's always bringing some drama, or every time you're with them you're getting caught up in something, or you know, like those aren't the homies, you know. That's what a lot of young people don't realize, you know, because they identify with them, you know. So it's they don't identify with people on a different path and talking money, you know, like talking
Mm-hmm.
legit money, not talking about like, hey, let's go hit this lick, you know. And yeah, I mean that's diving into that community and finding different interests, like learn. I made a commitment for this year. I want to try to learn at least one new thing a month, you know, whatever that might be. Like, you know, just learning something new, whether if it's how to do something or taking the wife to a salsa dancing class, or I'm really thinking about motorcycle. I'm going to get a motorcycle. You know, I haven't taken the initiative, but the thought's there, but
Yeah,
just
yeah.
trying, allow yourself to live outside your norm, try something different, like expose yourself to, different things, and keeping that mindset has helped me like change a lot of my perspective on life. And my worries today weren't what they were like 5 years ago,
Mm.
like my worries today are like, what imprint can I leave? And I have a friend that talks about the dash, in our plot, it's,
Mm-hmm.
I was born in 1981, then there's a dash, and then date of death is, 2000,
Mm.
whatever. Yeah, those are numbers, but that dash between is what people like, don't really. It's like, what are you gonna do with your dash?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I'm at. I'm just trying to like hopefully build something before my time's done, and help get something started. And kind of like that's kind of part of the healing generations thing. Just
Mm-hmm.
really trying to leave this place better than it was when I came around. You know.
Mm.
And that's kind of where I'm at, and at my 42 years of age. Like, how can I give back, and what imprint can I leave here? That people could talk about. That guy had a
Yeah.
vision, and look what happened. You know.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. I mean, at least I know I inspire for that too. I inspire for that. Like when I leave, are people gonna say, man, he contributed to this world in a good way, even if it's just a little bit. There's so much we could talk about. I think at some point I have to bring you back for a part two. But as we get into this, I kind of want to close out of what can people get involved in, like you want to highlight right now. What can you highlight? And if you give me the whatever the links are, whatever, even off air, we'll put them on we'll put them in the show notes and on social media and stuff like that, because I want people to get involved. I want you to listen to this and take it as an opportunity. So if you live in the LA area, that's great because people are here, ready to do the work. If you live in the state of California, there's something. Or if you live anywhere across, we have listeners all across the United States, including around the world. But I want to encourage you to do something in your community, just a little bit. I like the challenge that Joseph made for himself, like learn something at least once a month, learn a new thing. I live by that. I'm always watching new stuff, trying to learn something, reading something, because the more information you have, that palabra goes a long way. Not only our voice, what we say, what we're doing, but even reading the words. They're so inspirational a lot of times. So, Joseph, what are those things people can get involved in, or things you're working on that you just want to make people aware of? Because I think it's important.
Yeah, there's actually a few things coming up. So we're launching what we're calling a welcome home for folks coming home from systems. Whatever system that might be. Immigration detention, drug rehab, prison, juvenile hall. And the concept is, celebrating these folks, and celebrating and creating a community, a welcoming community, that, we're still building it, but the idea is home cooked food,
Mm.
we want some food, community, depending who volunteers or what resources we're able to get, some type of art stuff going on, music. I mean, the idea is, it's endless,
Mm-hmm.
whoever we could get to show up that can participate, that, can help build community, help, create jobs for folks, help, if people want to hire, want to give people a chance. We're having planning meetings for that twice a month virtually. That's going to happen the fourth Saturday every month
Mm.
in South Los Angeles at the Youth Justice Coalition.
Mm.
And I'll get you all that info. And there are also some youth development projects coming up, within it's a fairly new department, the Department of Youth Development in the LA County. We're working on building hubs throughout the county, and building these communities and really trying to get the voice of the community and the needs for the community,
Mm-hmm.
and like one thing I push in these spaces is, and I got to remind these people because I'm learning more and more how the county things could be like laid out, but then the county sometimes wants to like switch things up into their way. And I've reminded them a few times, like, maybe the needs in East LA might be high on housing and immigration, but the needs in the Antelope Valley, immigration may not even come up. Maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
housing and, employment,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that we build these communities based on the needs, and there's no cookie cutter. There's no like, you can't plan a meeting. It's like, no, this is what we're going to do. This is going to be our focus, and that's it. Working with people doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hear your needs. Okay, we don't have that resources. Yeah, let's build some of these resources. And
Mm-hmm.
we're still small. I mean, we have our 501c3 status. We're gladly accepting volunteers, interns. We just got a couple interns this school semester. Our first two interns.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of different ways to get involved.
So what's the name of the organization?
The name of our organization is the Action Project. You can find us at www.theaction, THEACTION -project.org.
All right, you heard that. Relatives, get connected. If you could support Brother Joseph, it's good. Support the work if you can, provide that opportunity. And again, brother, I want to thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your evening. I know you had school today, a lot of different things going on, but I'm really happy that you took a little time out, to share a little bit about your life, a little bit about your message. And I definitely want to bring you back. We have these podcasts in various lengths. We like to keep ours down to an hour. But man, I mean, and two, even me, I want to like think about it a little bit more. And there's so many questions I have for you, really. Realistically, I do. I want to remind all the relatives before I give you the last word, when it comes to healing. Remember, they talk about 4 domains of healing, right? That mental, that emotional, that physical, and that spiritual. And some people, exercise is healing for them, healing the body, so you feel good, because when your body doesn't feel good, you don't feel good emotionally. So making sure that you're taking care of your body in ways to feel better. And then too, your mental health, that you're stimulating your mind, that that you have a motivation, and that emotional health too, thinking about that emotional health, all the different parts that go to that. People feel anxiety, depression, have a hard time sleeping, how sleep is so important for us, drinking water, all those different things, as a part of our emotional health. And I know for a lot of people, the pandemic did one on a lot of people. And even though it's at a whole different level, the residue of that trauma is still here. But the one that's important to me that people often neglect is the spiritual healing and the domain of our spirit, you know, because that's where a lot of times it's really deep inside of us, and we suppress it through lots of ways, through relationships, through laughter, some healthy and some not so healthy. But I want to tell you, invest in yourself, invest in your spirit, all the 4 elements. Do what you can in that way, but really healing starts at home, starts within you. And then, have that gratitude for people in your life, in your community. It's going to make a big difference in your life. I know it will. So I just want to tell you that much. I'm going to pass over to Brother Joseph again. If there's anything you want to share, any last minute thoughts, I'll leave that last word to you.
So yeah, there's a movement going on within the youth justice system in Los Angeles, and I'm also learning more across the country. But folks may or may not know, like, United States is highest in people incarcerated, highest, with people on medications and diabetes and all these other things, right? But in saying all that, you could follow this organization. It's more like a collective. It's called the Los Angeles Youth Uprising.
Mm-hmm.
You can find them on Instagram at LAYUP, layup. They're always posting just different stuff going on. It's a youth justice focused community. We're working on closing the juvenile justice system facilities and fighting for funding to go towards healing in the community and really trying to like build community, and helping these young people and helping the families.
Mm-hmm.
The families need help. A lot of these kids never had a chance upon birth,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, so like I just wanted to kind of highlight that there's a lot of stuff coming up, a lot of different movements. They announce groups. We have different workshops throughout the week around decolonization, around policy work, around just different stuff going on throughout the week. I'm involved in various spaces, but yeah.
All right, you heard it, man. Get involved. Even if you're not in the alley area, you want to draw some inspiration, go check them out. Check out the groups on Instagram. I mean, that's the good thing about the internet in a lot of ways is that it shrunk the world. You could learn from other people that are down the street or,
Across the
cities away
globe.
from you. Yeah, across the globe. So I just want to encourage you in that way. Again, we'll see you next time. And I want you to remind you again, it only takes just that first step to get things going. Every day you wake up, it's a new life, it's a new day. Take advantage of it. And that way, you could always start whenever you're ready, and even if you're not ready, it's all right to take a step forward, and I really believe in that. And I know Joseph does too. So again, palabra to each and every one of you. I hope.
For more information about Healing Generations and the Healing Generations Institute, visit nationalcompadresnetwork.org and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our new releases.